Part 71. The Brave Life of a Space Peasant Girl. Author, Lan Department. Chapter 701. Chapter 701 Undead. Xiaoji had a hard time looking for her this time. Suddenly, an unpleasant aura rushed towards her, and Xiaoji immediately pursued her. Huh? Master, look where you are, Xiaoji called to Yuan. Yuan looked around and was surprised. Opposite was a continent full of dead energy. Apart from the dead energy, there was nothing on the continent. The sky is lifeless and the ground is filled with black sand, which makes people feel frightened just by looking at it. On the surface, there seems to be nothing, but Yuan knows that when night comes, things hidden in the darkness will appear, and darkness is their home field. With such a strong aura of death, Yuan thought this place was the ghost world. But there is no sunlight in the ghost world all year round, so there is no distinction between day and night. Ghost cultivators can be active outside at 12 hours a day. So this place has the same nature as the Yinming continent. It's just that this world is filled with ghost energy. Yuan was also puzzled as to why there was no normal person so that Mujukan could continue to practice. Yuan was depressed for a while, and across the boundary gate, he continued to draw the death veins into the red earth. From day to night, the death line is just a little drizzle to the continent. Night is coming. Like a continent that has been splashed with ink, there are no stars at all, and the silence is terrifying. Suddenly, countless undead souls poured out from all directions. They were shaped like a giant tadpole, with a big head holding a long tail and cold fangs exposed. And they exude a creepy and powerful aura of death. Yuan thought about it, it was as thick as the aura on her body, which meant that the strength of these undead spirits was equivalent to that of the immortal Lord. As soon as they came out, they kept chattering, and the words they talked were the same as those on the Yinming continent. Just as Yuan was thinking about whether this place had been a fairyland or a divine realm, several undead spirits that were larger than before suddenly came out. They seemed to maintain their human figures and appeared in the form of a Piao. Yuan was really startled, and Piao's breath made her feel suffocated. It was as if the other party could take her life at any time. Yuan immediately withdrew her consciousness and asked 10,000 Buddhas how to deal with the dead souls later. He is the authority on this. So Yuan turned around and found 10,000 Buddhas. Donor, I haven't seen this poor monk for a long time. What's the important matter? Yuan looked at the smiling monk. Why did she think he should call himself a talker? The holy monk should change his mind to Taoism. He is no longer like a holy monk at all. Is it okay for a poor monk to change his way to Taoism? 10,000 Buddhas asked, seemingly smiling but not smiling. Okay, okay. There is no normal person here. I am looking for you just to ask you. There is a continent full of undead souls. Do you want to go and liberate them? This will give you a chance to earn merit. Yuan was really impressed by this good-looking monk. He came to flirt with her for nothing, and she was not afraid that Mujukan and his son would beat him to pieces. Dead spirit, Yuan Buddha was stunned for a moment, then put away his smile, and now he looked like a divine monk. Yes, they are all on the same continent, and they are very powerful. I think that continent should have been the God realm before. Yuan told 10,000 Buddhas about the affairs of the underworld. But, can the donor take this poor monk over to have a look? Okay, I came here to find you. But, donor, let's go over. Okay, the holy monk. Wait a moment. Yuan nodded, and his spiritual consciousness controlled the gate to find a place where the strength of the undead was lower, and he passed by with a movement of his spiritual consciousness. As soon as Yuan passed by, he activated the divine clothes to prevent his breath from leaking out, and then moved the 10,000 Buddhas out. But. Yuan Buddha was also extremely surprised when he saw so many dead souls. He shouted the Buddha's name, immediately lit up Buddha's light on his body, and came to Yuan's side, covering her in the Buddha's light. The Buddha's light shone in this dark night, and the entire space was instantly illuminated by the Buddha's light. The undead souls that were illuminated felt as if they were being burned, causing them to scream and dance in the air in pain. 10,000 Buddhas were sitting cross-legged in the air, chanting scriptures that Yuan could not understand. The undead souls rolling in the air inexplicably quieted down amidst the sound of the scriptures, and they floated quietly in the air. After a while, Yuan saw a dead spirit suddenly turn transparent, and then dissipate into a puff of smoke. Is this to eliminate them? Not sending them to the underworld? Yuan is confused. Donor, don't worry. These undead spirits are just a spiritual thought left behind during life. They are not human souls. They should not exist. 10,000 Buddhas sent messages to explain her doubts. Yuan nodded. That's it, she understands the spiritual thoughts, just like the Zhou, it is formed from people's spiritual thoughts, but these divine thoughts are different from those of the Zhou. The turbid spirit grows by devouring people's 7 emotions and 6 desires, and it grows by devouring the energy of death, which can be restrained by the light of 10,000 Buddhas. At this moment, thousands of feet away, a powerful attack suddenly attacked 10,000 Buddhas. From a distance, you could hear the sound of 10,000 ghosts roaring towards the Buddha's light. The powerful spiritual consciousness of 10,000 Buddhas immediately sensed it. He suddenly opened his eyes and his heart sank. This ghost was so powerful. His Buddha light was withdrawn. He stretched out his hand to scoop up Yuan, and dodged the attack. Hoo. Just as 10,000 Buddhas disappeared, the attack whizzed past where the two were sitting. The force was so great that it knocked both of them flying away. Yuan's head was buzzing. 10,000 Buddhas also turned over several times before he stabilized his body. Wherever the power in his consciousness passed, countless ghosts and spirits disappeared. He put Yuan down and said, "Quickly enter the space." The scene just happened so fast, in the blink of an eye, that Yuan had no time to do anything. Her head was still buzzing, and after hearing the words of 10,000 Buddhas, her consciousness suddenly moved and she was brought into the space. In the space, Yuan took a long breath and immediately meditated. The 10,000 Buddhas sitting on the side had their eyes closed and kept muttering something in their mouths, not knowing what sutra they were reciting. Long time. Yuan looked outside. In the dark night, a ghost with a physical body was looking around. He was dressed in black, and his black hair was draped over his shoulders and fluttering in the night wind. His face was white and angry, and his face was full of anger. 2 of green fire danced in his eyes. Looks extremely scary. And countless ghosts were crawling around him, making no sound at all. Yuan withdrew her divine eyes and did not dare to release her spiritual consciousness. The ghost was too powerful and would definitely find her. "Shen monk, are you okay?" Yuan then remembered to ask. 10,000 Buddhas opened their eyes. "But, no problem, donor, the ghost spirit is too powerful. When the donor wants to go out, be careful, because the poor monk is going to retreat." "Okay, go ahead," Yuan nodded, not noticing anything strange about Wanfo. After Wanfo entered the 10,000 Buddhas temple, he opened his clasped hands, and there was already a thin layer of sweat inside. He clasped his hands together again, and with a flash of consciousness, his palms were clean. End of this chapter. The Brave Life of a Space Peasant Girl. Author, Lan Department. Chapter 702. Chapter 702 Ghost King. But his heart couldn't calm down. Thinking of Yuan's soft body in his arms just now, his silent heart suddenly boiled. At this point, his heart could not calm down. But, 10,000 Buddhas proclaimed the name of the Buddha, and he smiled bitterly. After all, he had moved his ordinary mind. In that situation just now, he was not worried that he could not defeat the ghost, but was worried that Yuan would be affected and run away with her in his arms. He had never had such close contact with a woman, and he couldn't stand the sweet fragrance from Yuan's body, which went straight into his nose. He is finished. Yuan Buten knows that he cannot do this, but his mind is uncontrollable. Yuan, this woman, is poisonous and must be avoided. 10,000 Buddhas closed their eyes and immediately recited the pure heart mantra. Outside, Yuan was sitting under the enlightenment tea, thinking about how to deal with the ghost spirit, which should be the ghost spirit king. What is Yuan thinking about, and she is so lost in thought? Mujukan came back from taking medicine and saw her sitting there alone in a daze. I'm thinking about the ghost king outside. Yuan pulled Mujukan to sit down and let him watch. Mujukan looked at it for a while, only focusing on the two of ghost fire in the eyes of the ghost king, which had become divine fire. If Nanming Luo swallows the ghost fire, it will definitely rise to one level. The ghost king is very evil. Well, even 10,000 Buddhas are no match for him. Yuan nodded. Is this going to be difficult? Mujukan looked at the ghost spirit fire and shook his head sadly. What's so difficult to do? What do you mean? I'm interested in those two of fire, Mujukan said. Oh, that fire is suitable for Nanmingli fire to devour. I can get him to enter the space, but what to do next is a question. Yuan honestly said that he could be trapped with the star formation, but what happens next, it's just not something she can do. Even 10,000 Buddhas can't do anything against the ghost king, let alone little weaklings like them. Well, Yuan sighed. The couple sat there looking at the ocean and sighing. Forget it, let's talk about it later when we have the strength, Yuan said. However, she had to put the death energy on this continent into the space and let the red earth swallow it up. The black earth could not be used for the time being. The immortal energy was very strong. Even Yu Heiran and the others have been able to practice in space until they can ascend. Think about it, the space of a continent's yin vein is less than 1,000th of the size of other people's yin and underworld. What else can Mujukan do? He can only agree. Unexpectedly, Mujukan didn't think about it anymore. He still went to take care of the medicine field, while Yuan ducked into the red earth. The king of ghosts found no one outside. When it was daylight, he hid like all the ghosts. Yuan side uses the boundary gate to collect the dead energy and dead veins. Gradually, the lifeless atmosphere on this continent became less intense. Just something unexpected happened to Yuan. When the undead came out every night, they started to devour each other. Yuan didn't know why at first, but later she understood that it was because the death energy on the mainland was not enough to allow so many undead to survive. So the big undead appeared to devour the small undead, and the strong undead devoured the large undead. Later on, even the king of the undead had to rely on devouring the undead to survive. Yuan's mind turned. If she absorbed all the death energy on this continent and made it impossible for them to survive, would even the king of the undead starve to death in the end? No matter what the outcome is, Yuan will do whatever comes to her mind. 100 years later, the death energy in the entire continent has been reduced to some extent, and the undead spirits have also disappeared, and the remaining ones are all powerful. Yuan did not expect that the undead would become stronger after devouring each other, just like cultivating goo, and the remaining strength would be almost the same as that of the Ghost King. They occupy territory on this continent, and no one offends anyone easily, and no one crosses the boundary easily. Each of them takes care of the remaining yin energy on their own territory. Sometimes the ghosts also discuss, and eventually it turns into an argument, and then later it turns into a quarrel. Yuan found it interesting to see them like that. When she had nothing to do every day, she would sit and watch them quarreling. Slowly, Yuan could understand the meaning of their quarrel, and then could understand the meaning of individual words. Yuan discovered this and temporarily stopped holding back her anger. Instead, she listened to their quarrel and learned their language. Over time, Yuan actually learned their language and what they were arguing about every time. Tonight, Yuan sat outside the boundary gate and watched them quarreling as usual. Ghost Spirit A, you crossed the line again today. Ghost Ling I, you didn't pass it first, and I did it only after that. It only took a short while to say that it was stingy. Ghost spirit B, you are not stingy. If ghost spirit A goes to your place, you have to come back and pay it back. Ghost ling ding, hey, don't argue about such trivial matters every day. Think of a way to restore the dead energy, otherwise we will all starve to death. No matter what we do, we can't leave here. Yes, if you don't ask the king should come tonight. Okay, remember it later, don't forget it. Ha ha ha, I can really forget it. Don't make noises at all times, talk about the business as soon as you get there. All the ghosts and spirits were talking in various directions. A sound broke through the air. The king is coming, a ghost said. Sure enough, as soon as he finished speaking, the ghost king came. See the king, all the ghosts and spirits shouted in unison. What are you talking about? Asked the ghost king. Ghost spirit A hurriedly said, King, this place is not suitable for us to live. Can the king take us out of here? The green fire in the ghost spirit king's eyes jumped very slowly. He glanced at the less than 1,000 ghost spirits, nodded and said, the laws of this world are incomplete. We can't go anywhere. We have to find a way out by ourselves. The ghost king was telling the truth. His remaining memory told him that when the death energy invaded, the laws of this world were also destroyed, and the dead at that time could still enter the underworld. As time goes by, the souls of those who died later will be eroded away, leaving only a little bit of spiritual thoughts alive, but they don't want these spiritual thoughts to absorb the death energy and become undead. As for him, he remembered that he was the main of this world. Because his soul was powerful during his lifetime, he barely retained some of his soul after his death, so he was able to survive a little bit. Then slowly devoured those undead souls and became stronger again. The strength now is almost the same as before when he was alive, but the missing memory will be lost forever. There is only the little remaining memory of the original, which is also the most important memory. But he has no memory of how to get to the ghost world. This must be found. They cannot go to the underworld in this state. Once they go to the underworld, they will not be destroyed. They can only go to the ghost world. After hearing this, all the ghosts started talking one after another. Some said they were going to the underworld, and some said they were going to the ghost world. When Yuan heard what they said, she touched her chin and thought that she could help them go to the ghost world, but she didn't know if the ghost king would be willing to exchange his divine fire. She wouldn't do it anyway because it would be useless. End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The Brave Life of a Space Peasant Girl. Author, Lan Department. Chapter 703. Chapter 703. The boat capsized in the gutter. Thinking of this, Yuan immediately sent a message, what if I can help you go to the ghost world? Are you the human cultivator that day? The ghost spirit king was stunned. His attack that day was so powerful that he actually let the two people run away. The ghost king is still looking for them, but this Manchu himself came to the door. Yes. Did you take away the death energy here? The ghost king's tone was a bit unkind. He seemed to be on the verge of explosion. Yuan guessed that if she were in front of him now, he would definitely beat her to a pulp. Didn't you see that he was looking for her everywhere? Yes, this should be the God realm. We have collected the death energy, and maybe this place can be restored one day, Yuan admitted without hesitation. Humph, stupid, how can this world be restored? How can it be restored? The divine veins are gone, even the way of heaven has fallen, and the laws are all destroyed. How can it be restored? This stupid person Chiu, why didn't he kill them all that day? He was so angry that if she didn't take away those ghostly auras, this place would be equivalent to a ghost world. They can live freely here. The king of ghost spirits was furious, this broken man cultivator. The other ghosts looked at him blankly, wondering why the king said such a thing. Then tell me, if you want to go to the ghost world I can help you, but I want the divine fire in your eyes. If Yuan didn't say anything, he was afraid that he wouldn't have a chance to say it out loud. The Ghost King was already looking for her everywhere, and he was so angry that he wanted to find her and cut her into pieces. Boom! As expected, the Ghost King didn't say anything and just slapped his palm towards the empty space. Yuan felt that the space was shaking, and she sighed that the Ghost King was so strong. She curled her lips and said she wouldn't go if she didn't want to go. Let them hungry here, and she could still get the 2 divine fires. She didn't bother to waste any time. Every day after that, Yuan took away the remaining dead veins as usual. Those ghost spirits lost their ghost energy and had no choice but to devour each other. In the end, less than 200 were left. The Ghost King's strength is even beginning to decline. Finally one day, the Ghost King couldn't bear it anymore and shouted, come out, I promise you." Yuan looked at the furious look of the Ghost Spirit King impatiently. She ducked out and said, "The Ghost Spirit King has just figured it out, so it's better to do it sooner." She had to wait for so long. But she did not show up, she remained invisible. When the Ghost King heard the sound, the 2 of fire in his eyes jumped very fast, which showed that he was very, very angry. He gritted his teeth and said, "Send it to us first." "I will definitely send it to you." Cunning person Jiu, he doesn't believe her at all. Yuan said with a faint smile, but not a smile, "The king of ghost spirits thought that this fairy was just a child and sent it to you. How could he give me the divine fire? Then let's all die." The king of ghost spirits was once the main god. How could his dignity be trampled upon by a little immortal? If he played tricks on him again and again, he would be dead. Boom! A loud noise. A catastrophic force covered the land at an incredible speed. After the loud noise, the land exploded with the loud noise. If someone saw the explosion here in the starry sky at this time, they would see a continent like a slab, blasted through the middle. The power after the explosion, like 2 mushroom clouds, rose from both ends of the continent and then dissipated. The most unlucky person is Yuan. She never expected that the Ghost Spirit King would have such a bad temper and would explode at the slightest disagreement. She was right at the center of the explosion. The strong force threw her out, shaking her whole body. Even though she was protected by divine clothes, the boat capsized in the ditch this time. That powerful force was beyond the endurance of Shinai, and she was so shaken that she didn't even have the strength to enter the space. The power was too strong and too fast. She was stunned in a few breaths and was thrown to an unknown place along with the explosive. Mujukin was working in the medicine field when he suddenly felt a vibration in the space. He looked around and was scared to death. Not only him, 10,000 Buddhas, Yuhairan, and others all ran out. "Jukin, what's going on?" Feng glanced at the space and didn't see Yuan, so she immediately asked Mujukin. Mujukin was stunned at this moment. He didn't seem to hear Feng's question. He ducked to the top of the treasure pavilion and looked at the top soul tablet. There are slight cracks on the soul card, as if it will fall apart at any time. Mujukin felt pain in his heart, spit out blood and fainted on the ground. Liangbao was the first to catch up. Seeing this scene, the 2 brothers' eyes immediately turned red. "Brother, I will send Dad down to heal his wounds." "You look at the soul card here." Urbao suppressed the grief in his heart and said immediately. "Good." Urbao immediately carried Mujukin back to the small palace where Yuan and Mujukin lived, and immediately fed him a healing elixir. Urbao frowned. He looked at Mujukin's body with his spiritual consciousness, and his heart was hurt. He did not dare to leave, so he stayed there. At Dabao's place, Wanfo and the others came up soon. When they saw that Yuan's soul card was about to fall apart, they were all very nervous. "Amitba, Yuan Buddha was heartbroken. He had already warned the woman to be careful. If she disobeyed, what should she do now? He has the ability to reach heaven, but if he can't get out, it's all in vain. Feng Shi fainted on the spot when she saw the soul tablet was cracked. Upon seeing this, Mrs. Li quickly sent her down with Wu. Everyone else was sitting on the ground, staring at the soul card. As long as the soul cards don't fall apart, that's fine. Means that Yuan has not fallen. On the other side, the little snake, who was leisurely and happy in the forest, was leading Xiaosong and other fairy beasts to wander around. Suddenly, his heart palpitated, followed by a pain in his heart. The little snake flew to the place where the soul card was placed with a whoosh. Sure enough, something happened to the owner. The little snake, like the others, is there to guard. In an unknown place, when Yuan became somewhat conscious, she felt that her body was no longer hers. When she checked it with her consciousness, her soul was in great pain and she fainted again. I don't know how long it took before she woke up again. It seemed that she was much more awake this time. She carefully looked at her current situation with a little bit of consciousness. The divine clothes on her body were all torn, but fortunately they did not fall apart, otherwise she would be missing all over. The soul cover was also cracked, and so was the soul. Fortunately, her soul had already developed some physical form, otherwise it would have disintegrated. But the soul was very painful. She only used the soul a little bit, but the pain was so painful that she almost fainted. Yuan immediately stopped using his consciousness, and then fell asleep again. When I woke up again, I vaguely heard someone talking. "Master, when will this man wake up?" The voice of a little boy, about 10 years old, spoke the same language as the Ghost King, and Yuan could understand it. Then an old man's voice said, "I don't know, this man is seriously injured." Little boy, "Master, please give her some medicine." Old man, "Okay, keep an eye on her while the master goes to collect the medicine. Don't move her." End of this chapter. The Brave Life of a Space Peasant Girl. Author, Lan Department. Chapter 704. Chapter 704 Healing. Little boy, oh. Then another burst of rustling. Like a stick of incense, Yuan heard the old man's huffing and puffing voice and came to her side. After another rustling, a few drops of medicinal juice fell on her mouth. Yuan immediately felt a chill as the concoction entered her body. The place where the concoction passed through quickly repaired her damaged body. Yuan thinks this concoction is so magical. Her body is a fairy body, and she needs at least fairy medicine to repair her body. No magic medicine will work. Judging from the smell of the medicine, she had never seen this kind of medicine before. After the old man dripped a lot of concoction, the little boy said, "Master, you see, her injury is beginning to heal. Her face, eyes, nose, and mouth were not visible before, but now they are." Yuan. She has done so miserably again. The old man was arrogant. "That's right, you don't even know who the master is. We are the most harmful doctor in our country. If this person doesn't meet the master, he will have to wait for death." He, that's right, the master is the worst," the little boy flattered him. Snapped. "I asked you to study hard, but you only know how to be lazy. Have you seen this again?" The little boy received a slap, very lightly. The little boy rubbed the top of his hair, laughed a few times, nodded and said, "Yeah, I've seen it. Then go back and ask a few people to carry her back. You need to bring wooden boards." "Okay, disciple, let's go now." Then the little boy left. After the little boy left, the old man sat down and said to himself, "You don't know where you came from. You are so seriously injured and you are not dead yet. You are really lucky. Fortunately, you met me, old man Suanji, otherwise, alas, even if the gods come, they can't save you." Then Yuan felt the self-proclaimed old man Suanji pull off her clothes, as if to see what the material was. After that, he felt her pulse again, and heard the old man Suanji sigh. It is probably because she is in bad condition. The little boy didn't come back after being gone for half an hour, and the old man Suanji didn't say anything either, sitting silently aside. Yuan felt that her body was getting better, but only her soul was still the same. You have to take her soul pill to do this. It's just that she can't get the elixir now. Dabeo saw everything in the space and outside. He couldn't tell how excited he was when he saw that his mother was not dead. He immediately rushed down to the treasure pavilion and came to Mujukan. Mujukan also woke up at this moment and stared at Yuan lying in a big pit. Dad, Mom is fine, don't worry. Dabeo went over and sat next to Mujukan, next to him. Mujukan came back to his senses and saw that it was Dabeo. He nodded, your mother is in a bad situation right now and her soul is hurt. It's a pity that Dad's space magic can't penetrate your mother's space barrier. Otherwise, I can send you the elixir. Give her. As long as my mother is fine, it's fine. The injury can be healed slowly. Above the treasure pavilion, everyone saw Dabeo going down in a hurry, so they all followed him down and sat in the garden waiting. Mr. Mu came down knowing that Dabeo must have seen something. The grandson gave him divine vision, but he and his younger son's divine souls were not strong enough and had not been refined, so they could not see. Outside, someone finally came. They carefully moved Yuan to the wooden board and carried her away. After walking for more than half an hour, I put her on the bed again. Suanjiza said, thank you very much, everyone. There are 4 male voices, you're welcome, Dr. Xian. Then the 4 people left. At this time, Suanjiza said again, disciple, look at her. Master has something to do and has to go out. Little boy, yes, master. After Xianjitsi left, the little boy stayed beside Yuan. Yuan could now move her fingers a little. She tried to operate the Starju. It was very difficult to operate the technique at first. Wherever the technique went, the meridians could barely pass. It took a full hour to complete the circle. It was getting dark by now, and Suanjizi hadn't come back yet, so the little boy got some food by himself. He wanted to give Yuan some advice, but Yuan had been sleeping, so he gave up after just one look. Suanjiza didn't come back very late, so the little boy closed the door and went to sleep. Yuan, on the other hand, is working hard to operate her skills. After the star art, it is time to start the star soul art again. She wants to enter the space as soon as possible. Enter the space so that the body can recover quickly. One night, the body recovered 10%, but the soul could not even successfully perform one circle of exercises. Yuan was impatient and couldn't eat hot tofu, so she had to give up. She really had to do this slowly. The little boy took a look at her in the morning and saw that she was alive, so he went to work on his own. When Suanjiza came back, he brought someone with him. The man stood in front of Yuan and looked at him for a while before going out. Yuan thinks this mystery is very mysterious, but she can't do anything in her current state. She is now the meat on the chopping board. Even if others use her to cook, there is nothing she can do. Where Yuan fell, Suanjiza said, that's right here. A man in his 30s looked at the big pit in front of him, and then at the trees that were hit. Brother, are you sure that the clothes she is wearing are not ordinary clothes? The man asked. Suanjiza said, yes, I'm sure. She fell so badly that she was left with only one breath. As you can see, her clothes were only torn, not torn by hooks, so she is not an ordinary person. It must be a monk. What should we do now? The man thought for a long time and said angrily, the divine demon sect has ruled this continent for too long. We people can obviously practice, but we are not allowed to practice. To practice, We must practice their demonic skills. What kind of truth is this? Junior brother, what do you mean? Suanjizi asked. Xianmingzi said, Senior brother, save and cure her first. Let's take a look first and then talk. Suanjizi understands. That woman is a monk and her strength is not low. Brothers did not return immediately, but collected a lot of herbs on the mountain before returning. Suanjizi checked Yuan's veins again and fed Yuan some concoction again. Not to mention, with this concoction and the exercises, Yuan's body recovered by 10% after 1 day. In this way, after 10 days, Yuan's body recovered 40 to 50%, and she could get up. Where is the girl from? Suanjizi asked as soon as she came. Yuan opened her mouth. She would only listen to what was said here, but not speak it. Suanjizi saw that she was hesitant to speak, so he thought it was not convenient for her to speak, so he did not ask. This continent does not allow Taoism to be practiced, but it is not that no one practices secretly. The demon cultivators are so good that they can't hide the disgusting demonic aura they carry with them at all times. Yuan saw that he didn't ask, she just smiled at him. She came out of the house and sat in the yard. The courtyard was an ordinary small courtyard, with herbs drying on the ground. Yuan sat in the courtyard, smelling the fragrance of the herbs, and felt comfortable all over. End of this chapter. The Brave Life of a Space Peasant Girl. Author, Lan Department. Chapter 705. Chapter 705. Suanjizi looked at Yuan sitting in the courtyard looking at the medicinal materials strangely. Aren't those ordinary medicinal materials? What catches your eyes? How did he know that these ordinary medicinal materials could cure Yuan's injuries? Of course she looked at these medicinal materials curiously. The world here is really strange. There is obviously no power she knows in the air. Apart from the power of the stars, it is like a mortal world. It happened that these common medicinal materials that she didn't know could cure her injuries, but they couldn't cure her soul. If there is, her soul can still be felt. When the yang energy was strong, Yuan would sit cross-legged in the yard and run the star soul Ju. Suanjizi saw it, and his thoughts turned out to be true. He calmly walked over and closed the courtyard door gently so that no one in the village could see it. Yuan continued to practice until her yang energy faded, and then she stopped. Practice under the yang qi and it was indeed twice the result with half the effort. At the end of the day, her star soul art was able to operate, and her soul was slightly repaired. With this practice, she will be able to enter the dimension within 5 days. 4 days passed like this. On this day, Yuan practiced as usual. In a palace thousands of miles away on a big mountain, there was a rough-looking man. When his consciousness covered the entire continent, he suddenly saw Yuan practicing. He was so angry that no one dared to practice privately. With a flash of consciousness, he rushed towards the small village where Yuan was. Yuan didn't know that danger was approaching. Her soul had just been restored by half, and she could finally use a little consciousness to avoid fainting from pain. She was so happy that she turned her hand over and 2 bottles of elixir appeared in her hand. Yuan smiled knowingly, immediately took a divine soul pill, and continued to run the star soul art. With the divine soul pill, the divine soul was quickly repaired. Suddenly, a danger approached her. When she noticed, a big hand of the rough man had already grabbed her. At the moment Jianjun was about to shoot, the stars under Yuan's feet rose up and flew into the sky like lightning. The big palm failed to grasp it, but Suanjizi's small courtyard had been destroyed. Suanjizi and the little boy were not sure whether they were alive or dead. Yuan was very angry. How could someone attack her out of nowhere and harm other mortals? She raised her fist and punched the person coming. The rugged man caught the air with one blow, and his heart was filled with anger. He saw Yuan flying in the air and dared to attack him, which really made him furious. A woman who does not know her own abilities, he used his strength to confront Yuan. Boom! The two forces collided, and both of them were knocked away. So strong the rugged man stabilized his figure and waved a magic weapon. How could such a strong Taoist cultivator keep her alive? He would kill her at any cost today. And Yuan was surprised that the man was actually a demon cultivator. There was obviously no demonic energy here, so how could there be a demon cultivator who was on par with her? It was hard for the demon cultivator to tell, but with a flash of consciousness, she entered the space and threw away the 10,000 Buddhas. Everything that happened here scared the people in the village half to death. They didn't dare to come out to watch, let alone see how Suanjiza was doing. Shortly after hearing the loud sound that destroyed the sky and the earth, a voice came, Amitabha. Huh, just when the rugged man was about to take the opportunity to kill Yuan, he suddenly saw the person disappear out of thin air, and in the blink of an eye, a great monk appeared. Buddhist, the rugged man was horrified. No matter what kind of cultivation he has, here, in the territory of his demonic cultivation, how can these Taoist and Buddhist cultivators be allowed to exist? He immediately sacrificed the magic weapon and attacked 10,000 Buddhas. The calm 10,000 Buddhas only waved his hands gently, and a ray of Buddha light came out from his hand, instantly covering the rugged man like a cage. The rugged man seemed to be frozen, unable to move. He looked at the 10,000 Buddhas in horror. At this time, Mujukan, Liangbao, and brothers Yu Heiran appeared. Liangbao immediately looked for Xianjitsi and the little boy in the ruins of Xianjitsi. Mujukan and Yu Heiran flew towards 10,000 Buddhas. When Yuan entered the space, he moved them out. They knew what was happening outside without telling them. She then entered the palace, changed her clothes, and then took the elixir to recover quickly. Outside, Wanfo detained the rough man and threw him to Mujukan. He would only hand over the knife to kill someone. Before Mujukan could do anything, the Yu Heiran brothers swarmed into the rugged man with their fists. They haven't refined their divine eyes yet, so they can't see what happened specifically, but they were thrown out by Xiao Sier, so they must be fighting with this person. How is it okay to bully their sister? Beat him or kill him. The rugged man howled after being beaten, and he shouted for mercy. Unfortunately, no one could understand, so he didn't stop at all. Instead, he beat him even harder. Amitabha, donor, please spare his life. When the 10,000 Buddhas heard that what he said was similar to what the ghost said, they immediately stopped him. As soon as 10,000 Buddhas finished speaking, dozens of piercing sounds shot out towards the place. The people's spiritual consciousness was very strong and they immediately noticed someone coming. 10,000 Buddhas cast a barrier to trap the rough man, and several people looked at the person coming. 16 people came. They looked at so many Taoist cultivators in front of them, and there was also an unfathomable Buddhist cultivator. One of the high-level demon cultivators signaled the people behind him to be calm. He bowed to 10,000 Buddhas and said, "Why did you attack the elders of our sect?" A few people couldn't understand what the man was asking. One Buddha said helplessly, "Amitabha, the poor monks can't understand what the donor said." He hoped that the demon cultivator on the other side could understand what they said. The demon cultivators understand the 4 words Amitabha, which is the name of the Buddha proclaimed by the Buddha cultivators, and they cannot understand other words. This is good. Everyone was confused, and then looked at each other. More than a dozen demon cultivators were also stunned on the spot, not daring to people away, let alone attack Mujukan and the others. The strength of these people is extraordinary, and they may not be able to defeat them once they take action. Mujukan still said, "Holy monk, Heiran, let's wait here until Waner is healed." A few people nodded in agreement, so a few people sat down in the air. Down below, the 2 treasures have found one big and one small who have been beaten into pulp. Liangbao had no choice but to bury them in the small courtyard and wait until their mother came out to deal with the demon cultivator. The demon cultivator couldn't escape anyway. After the two treasures were taken care of, they flew into the air and sat next to Mujukin. The demon cultivators didn't know what they meant, so they simply sat down. In the space, Yuan finally finished healing her injuries. She took out a soul-protecting artifact and recognized its owner before she stepped out. 10 days have passed since that day. Within 10 days, some people in the village boldly came out and looked into the sky, seeing them all sitting there, as if they would not do anything to them. The people in the village came out one after another and continued to live as usual. Yuan came out and saw the rough man trapped in the barrier, and the two parties were just sitting there. "Wan, are you okay now?" Mujukin asked her eagerly. Seeing her injured and about to die at any moment, his heart felt as if someone was gouging her out. End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The Brave Life of a Space Peasant Girl. Author, Lan Department. Chapter 706. Chapter 706 Interstellar Language. He would rather be the one injured. He couldn't stand that kind of worry, that kind of anxiety. "It's okay, what do you mean?" Yuan pointed at the demon cultivator opposite. "I don't understand what they are saying, so I'm stuck here," Mujukin said. "Oh, how about the doctor who saved my mother?" Yuan asked Liangba. "The older one and the younger one died, we buried them in that small courtyard," Dabao said. Yuan frowned and looked at the rugged man in the barrier. "Monk, let that man out." Wanfo nodded, and with a flash of consciousness, he removed the barrier. Yuan waved her hand, and the rugged man was in front of her. When the demon cultivators on the opposite side saw this scene, some wanted to rush over and someone away, but were stopped by the demon cultivator with the highest level of cultivation. He said to Yuan, "Fairy, wait a minute." Yuan raised her head and looked at the person. She asked in their words, "Why?" As soon as these words came out, Mujukin and the others were surprised that she could not only understand but also speak. They don't know that Yuan spent more than 100 years figuring it out on his own. These days, she has been listening to the conversations between master and apprentice Suanjizi, and slowly she can learn to pronounce it. Subconsciously, Yuan felt that she needed to learn this language. As expected, the demon cultivator listened to his poor interstellar language, and someone finally understood him. It was just in time for him to ask them where he came from and how high he was in cultivation. As for Elder Feng, they can't save him. Mo Yun, the highest level demon cultivator, the leader of the divine demon sect, said, "Fairy, you are not from our Huanyun star, are you? Which planet are you from? How did you come here?" A long time ago, planets could communicate with each other, but after the war between gods and demons, the interstellar energy ball was destroyed, and the original energy on the planet gradually decreased, resulting in the monks becoming weaker and weaker, and they could no longer fly. Planet. Otherwise, why would their god and demon sect be so arrogant in not allowing Taoist cultivators to practice? Planet. Yuan didn't sound like a continent commonly used in the world of immortality. She said, "We are people from the Wushu world. We came here accidentally. I don't know where this is. Why do you call it a planet? Wushuja? Never heard of it, no wonder you are unfamiliar with interstellar language." Mo Yun suddenly realized that Wushu realm is probably another legendary civilization that cultivates immortals. Interstellar is the common language of humans in this starry sky, so it can be called interstellar. Is there a group of stars here? Yes, interstellar. The planets here all speak interstellar. In the past, planets could still communicate with each other. Mo Yun briefly and comprehensively talked about the situation between the planets. After Yuan heard this, she thought so, and she asked again, Then why do you still cultivate demons and have no Taoist cultivation when there is obviously no demonic energy here, and this person attacked me inexplicably and beat my savior to death? What do you say about this? Mo Yun sighed, and the fairy finally asked these questions. He said, the fairy doesn't know something. The resources on Huan Yun star have been exhausted. Our god and demon sect is the major sect here. It has a long inheritance, how can it be interrupted? As for the lack of Tao cultivation, that is the sect's rule. Except for practicing the sect's martial arts and returning to the sect, no other cultivation is allowed. For Elder Feng to attack the fairy, he should have discovered that the fairy was a Taoist cultivator. The fairy's savior was accidentally injured. Fairy, please see if you can be given a lighter sentence. After all, he who doesn't know is not guilty. Yuan understood after hearing this explanation. No wonder Suanjiza was so mysterious, and he tried not to expose her. Little did he know that monks see things with their spiritual sense, not their eyes. It's just that the Shenmo sect's behavior is a bit too domineering. But in a world where the strong are respected, she couldn't tell who was right and who was wrong, but it was a bit too much to not allow Taoists to practice. She sarcastically said, "You are really overbearing. You have told me so much today. I don't have to hold your Shenhun sect accountable, but I won't let this person go. If you don't accept it, you can come and rob him. Also, from today on, I hope you will stop suppressing Taoist cultivators and allow them to practice." Xianjitsi probably saved her just to practice cultivation. Now that he is dead, she helps him fulfill his wish. Him returned his life-saving grace. Is the fairy trying to make things difficult for others? Mo Yun was a little angry. Elder Feng couldn't save him if he couldn't be saved, but he allowed Taoists to practice. Isn't this too much of a lie? Forcing people to make things difficult, Yuan glanced at Wan Buddha. The corner of Wan Buddha's mouth raised, and he nodded. Suddenly, he waved his hand to cover the dozen demon cultivators in the barrier, and then waved out the Buddha's light to cover them all. When the Buddha's light entered their bodies, the demon cultivators immediately felt unbearable pain and their bodies were imprisoned. They could not move even if they wanted to, nor could they shout even if they wanted to. The pain was so painful that their faces were distorted. They had suffered enough, and the 10,000 Buddhas removed the barrier and the Buddha's light. How's it going? Doesn't it feel good? Aren't you using your strength to overwhelm others? This is strength. You don't have a choice whether you agree or not. If you want to play dirty tricks behind your back, I don't mind letting the divine monk teach you. Roll. With Yuan's sharp roar, Mo Yun rolled away with a dozen demon cultivators. God, that Buddhist cultivator is too powerful, and his Buddha light makes them miserable. Come on, let the Tao cultivators practice. If you don't answer, they will all die. Let's go in, Yuan said, and then rolled everyone into the space, including Elder Feng. In the space, after Yuan imprisoned Elder Feng, he told them what the magic cloud just said about the planet. After listening to this, everyone was amazed at how big the universe is and how there is such a civilization of cultivation. Only Mujukan was thoughtful, and he asked Yuan, "Waner left that demon cultivator because she wanted him to teach us how to speak star language and learn more about it?" Yuan said sheepishly, "Yes, you see, I said that those who are struggling with interstellar language would be better off having someone ready to teach them. Okay, let's all learn." Even 10,000 Buddhas are eager to try. Once you learn interstellar, you will be able to communicate with people no matter where you are in the future. It is really embarrassing to be like this today. It's like a chicken and a duck. Fortunately, the other side can't beat them, so they don't dare to take action. Let Elder Feng teach them how to speak star language. Just leave this matter to Wan Buddha. Elder Feng dares not to teach them. Elder Feng, who had experienced the harm of 10,000 Buddhas, cooperated very cooperatively in teaching them the interstellar language. Even Yuan is listening. everyone is a monk and has someone to teach them. They learn very quickly. After a month, everyone can communicate fluently in star language. Then he asked Elder Feng to talk about the interstellar matter. Wan'er, you don't need to ascend to practice here. How about we find a suitable planet to live on? What do you think of Wan'er? After Mujukan clarified the matter of the planets, he asked Yuan, each planet here can directly cultivate to a god-man, there is no big and small world, fairy world, and there is no need to ascend. This is not suitable for him. End of this chapter. The Brave Life of a Space Peasant Girl. Author, Lan Department. Chapter 707. Chapter 707 Ascension 1. Yuan nodded, caressed his cheek, and sighed, of course it's feasible, I'm afraid it's not as optimistic as you think. Yuan has a feeling that the closer to the energy ball, the condition of those planets will not be very good, and they will all be very bad. Since she left the five-axis realm, none of the continents or planets she encountered were intact. On the contrary, only the five-axis realm was not greatly affected. This also shows that the five-axis world is far away from the energy ball. Even if you want to find a world where you can practice, you have to find it parallel to the five-axis world or where the energy ball is ejected from the undamaged side. But who knows which side of the energy ball is not damaged, or there is no good side at all. Even if there were, the energy ball would be a rotating body like the sun, otherwise there would be no distinction between day and night. After hearing this, Mujukan stood up and looked out of the space. He felt an indescribable loss in his heart. He wanted to become stronger and didn't want to see Wan'er hurt again, but he couldn't do anything. That feeling drove him crazy. But he didn't know what Wan'er said, and he felt disappointed when he knew it. His slender figure fell into Yuan's eyes, looking so lonely. Yuan sighed softly, stood up, hugged him from behind, and pressed his face against her back. She felt uncomfortable in her heart. Obviously, the qualifications are so high and the cultivation resources are so sufficient, but because of any spell, they cannot rise. Yuan can't wait to chop that Tiandao sect into pieces. Yuan said softly, don't be discouraged, just practice your mind. If you can survive this time safely, I believe you will not have any inner demons in the future. Okay. Mujukan turned around and hugged her. Smelling the fragrance of her hair, his heart calmed down. Yeah, Mujukan recalled every bit of his journey along the way, and he found that it seemed that his mentality had never been very good. Very unstable. This shows that there is indeed a big problem with his state of mind. To put it bluntly, he is very unconfident and feels inferior in front of Wan'er. As a man, his wife takes the lead in everything. She takes on all the responsibilities, but what about him? Other than causing a lot of trouble for Wan'er, it seems to be of no use. That was the problem with his state of mind. Mujukan sighed, why would he bother to get into trouble? Isn't this good? How many people will never get this in their lifetime? Those who cultivate immortality are most afraid of getting into trouble and not knowing how to adapt. Everything has two sides. He only saw the bad side, but ignored the good side, and instead enjoyed it every day. Mujukan chuckled in his heart, this must be the scumbag in Wan'er's mouth. Thinking about it, he is indeed a bit of a scumbag. He kissed the top of Yuan's hair. He was an idiot who didn't know how to be blessed despite being blessed. The planet that Yuan found later was indeed similar to the Huanyuan star. Its energy was almost exhausted and it was about to become a mortal star. And the closer they get to the energy ball, those planets will either completely become mortal stars, or they will all become death stars. Seeing this, Yuan was very worried. If this continues, this galaxy will disappear into the vast universe in a few years. This reminded her of the reason why Tianya took away her astral body. It was possible that they had spied something, and what only the astral body could do. She thought that no matter what the secret of the astral body was, as her cultivation level improved, she would surely know the truth one day. Now she continues to practice and become as soon as possible. Yuan took her family to travel around various planets and continents. If she encountered anything interesting or useful to Tianyan, she would send it back to him. She will send those in the space who need to go out, and those who need to go through the tribulation, she will send them back to the Dongsha realm to go through the tribulation. 20,000 years passed as Yuan traveled around the planets. In the past 20,000 years, except for Mujukan, all the people in the space have ascended to the divine realm one after another. Yuan asked them to stay in Dongsha realm. After all, it was the world with the strongest divine power after Tianxia realm. After 10,000 years have passed, she and Mujukan are the only ones left in the space who have not ascended. No matter whether Mujukan has cultivated in these years, his cultivation level will rise in Yuan's space. Now we have reached the preliminary point of ascension. The same goes for Yuan. In addition to finding a planet suitable for Mujukan's ascension, she also practices. It's a pity that I have never found it, not even a little bit. Because of this, she came later than others. In the space, Mujukan found Yuan. He looked at her distressedly. Her efforts over the years were obvious to all. Waner can't delay any longer and must ascend. At worst, he will be reorganized and rebuilt. As long as he doesn't die, he will do whatever he wants. Waner, go and ascend now. Yuan looked at his body, which was overflowing with magical power, and her beautiful eyebrows were almost knotted. Since he can no longer find a suitable world for his ascension, Mujukan may have to give up his cultivation. Ken. Waner, there's nothing to worry about. Your husband can't die anyway, so you have to ascend. Mujukan put his hands on her shoulders and said forcefully. This was the first time he treated her with such a forceful attitude. Okay, Yuan agreed. After ascending, his strength will increase, and Xiaja will also increase his strength to see if he can search farther away. Mujukan breathed a sigh of relief and finally let her agree. Just before ascending, he still had to transfer some of his physical strength to Waner. He picked her up and carried her back to the small palace. He had to do it. Through dual cultivation, the fairy power in Waner's body becomes thicker, which helps her break down the last barrier and consumes his fairy power at the same time. Moreover, he is reluctant to give up his cultivation. He will not do it unless it is absolutely necessary. 10 days later, Yuan returned to the immortal realm of Dongsha realm, found a place, and after setting up the star formation, set up the immortal gathering formation. After everything was laid out, Yuan took out the immortal stones in the space, leaving the top quality immortal stones, and took out all the immortal stones and part of the soul stones and piled them in the formation. After letting the little snake and 10,000 Buddhas come out to protect her, she sat in the formation and started to break through. She is a fellow cultivator of the third system. In order to break through to the realm of gods, so she must reach the peak of star art, galaxy art and star soul art before she can break through. Moreover, while breaking through the gods, the three systems also need to break through at the same time, otherwise she may fail to break through. This is why many people are unwilling to practice in 2 or 3 systems. Not only is it difficult to practice at the same time and consumes resources, but the key point is that at the moment of breakthrough and ascension, not everyone can make it through. For Yuan, it is also very difficult. Breakthrough and ascension, in the world of immortals, refers to a breakthrough in cultivation that can lead to a thunder disaster, so Yuan decided to break through the star soul art first. The divine soul will be the first to break through, so that it can support the breakthroughs in the remaining 2 systems. End of this chapter. The Brave Life of a Space Peasant Girl. Author, Lan Department. Chapter 708. Chapter 708, Ascension 2. When Yuan was running Star Soul Technique, her soul absorbed a large amount of star power and soul power. The 4 colors on her soul looked like meridians following the technique, and looked like the flowing LEDs. The lights are very beautiful. Yuan focused on running the skills and absorbed a large amount of star power and soul power. Now she was not worried about whether the soul could bear it, but whether it could break that barrier. So at this time, the more star power and soul power the better. After absorbing a large amount of star power and soul power, the soul gradually grew, from the original 3 feet tall to 4 feet tall. Yuan saw this and started running the technique faster. Then it grows to 4 feet. 5 feet. Stop when you reach 6 feet. At this time, her soul was not empty but very substantial. Her internal organs, meridians, bones, brain, were all similar to her real body, just like another Yuan. Yuan was overjoyed. This was a transformation from virtuality to reality, which meant that she was only one step away from breaking through to the divine level. How to break through this last step, she needs to figure it out herself. She was not present when Liang Bao and the others broke through, and she never went to look for them after that. She didn't know what the last step of the soul's breakthrough was like. No matter what, energy is indispensable. She just needs to absorb the power of the stars and soul power, and everything will fall into place naturally. Subsequently, the 4-color streamer on the soul gradually became darker from the previous light color. There was no change when the last 4 colors became all dark colors. Suddenly, Yuan heard a roar in the body of the soul. The soul suddenly swelled to 10 feet, just like a body like Arthur's. And the soul suddenly left her body and stood behind her body. Yuan was confused. What kind of operation was this? The 10,000 Buddhas who were guarding outside were all surprised when they saw this scene. This was Yuan's soul body. The soul body is the soul entity. The larger the soul body is, the stronger the person's soul is. He is currently in the God Emperor realm, and his soul body is only 100 feet tall. This Yuan has just condensed into a soul body and is so big, tisk tisk tisk, she is really a monster. Yuan's soul body glanced at 10,000 Buddhas, and then returned to the sea of consciousness with a whoosh sound. The soul body has been formed. Break through the body quickly. Suddenly, a sound transmission entered Yuan's ears. Oh, only then did Yuan realize that this was the result of the divine soul. Then she started to run the galaxy art again. With the experience of the divine soul body, her body naturally broke through to the divine body. These 3 systems of practitioners have many benefits and require a lot of effort. It will cost more fairy stones. So many immortal stones are enough for an immortal to cultivate from human immortal to immortal. It took 10 days, and Yuan spent 2/3 of the immortal stones to break through to the divine body. Yuan doesn't feel bad about those fairy stones. She can break through with just the flower fairy stones. It's not too late for her to be happy. When her divine body appeared as a phantom, it was 10 feet tall like her divine soul body. This kind of strength is the envy and jealousy of all Buddhas. The next step is cultivation. Yuan removed all the top quality immortal stones. He originally wanted to keep some, but now he has to see if they are enough. If it's not enough, you have to use star stones to make up for it. There were not many star stones. Yuan thought that she could not interrupt her cultivation breakthrough, so she also removed the last star stone to prepare for emergencies. When she was ready, Yuan began to operate the star technique. As soon as the technique was activated, her body absorbed the immortal energy like a sponge. Around her, you can see atomized fairy energy flowing straight into Yuan's body. Even the fairy spirit in the air is constantly being sucked in. 10,000 Buddhas were shocked to see that they could still smoke like this. No wonder she is so strong and can fight across different levels. Compared with those of the same level, her physical strength is simply a few steps ahead of others. If they were to fight, there would be no need to fight. There is no need to fight. This monster. 10,000 Buddhas want to return to secular life and practice Taoism. Forget it, what kind of Taoism do you want to practice? If you want to cultivate Taoism, he is sure that Mujukan and his son, 3 people, no, 4 father and son, and that squirrel, would be weird if they don't throw him away hundreds of millions of miles away. Don't say you have any ideas, it's hard to even see her. Now in her space, I can see her every day. Isn't that nice? You can also help her when encountering problems. The little snake was very calm. It had been following Yuan for so long. This kind of scene was really strange. How could it not be like this? Yuan's dantian was stretched like a rubber ball by the influx of immortal power. She quickly ran her skills, sending the immortal power in her dantian to the 8 extraordinary meridians, trying to widen her meridians. This is a good opportunity, and only when you break through the great realm and the immortal energy surges, can you broaden your meridians unscrupulously. How wide the meridians are expanded at this time can determine the future strength. The meridians that were originally as thick as a finger thickened little by little and then widened. The immortal power in dantian is also compressed, gradually turning into divine power. As long as everything is compressed completely, it is considered a breakthrough. This process takes a long time and consumes more immortal energy. Yuan basically consumed all the immortal stones and star stones before all the immortal power could be transferred and transformed. When the silver immortal power in the dantian turned into golden immortal power, the sky suddenly changed color, dark clouds rolled in, and the sound of thunder and lightning that broke through the sky came with a loud roar. It seemed as if the whole sky was about to rest on Yuan's head. This battle is not small, Yuan looked at the sky. She originally wanted to see the divine power in her dantian, but then this thunder disaster came. Rumble, click, click, click. Looking at the lightning that was still so far away, it struck down in the blink of an eye. Yuan was agitated. Why didn't this thunder disaster always have the same virtue and not be brewed for a while? As if impatient. Fortunately, the first thunderbolt did not hurt her, otherwise it would not have knocked her unconscious. Just in time, Yuan immediately used the power of thunder and lightning to consolidate the divine body. He had just broken through before, and the power of thunder and lightning came just in time. Having not finished absorbing the power of the first thunder and lightning, the second one couldn't wait to come. 10,000 Buddhas looked at the sky and frowned. This thunder calamity is not normal. What is heaven doing? He looked at Yuan in the center of the formation and saw that she was fine, so he did not do anything. The next thunderbolt was more harmful than a calendar, and there was no chance to breathe Yuan at all, as if she was going to kill her. Yuan thought that she had done nothing immoral, so why was this thunderstorm so violent? Rumble, click, click, click. Another thunderstorm came down, and the 3-foot-thick lightning struck Yuan. Yuan immediately vomited several large mouthfuls of blood and her internal organs were severely injured. My breath is unsteady. Yuan immediately swallowed a pill and quickly absorbed the power of thunder and lightning. When the divine consciousness of 10,000 Buddhas saw this, his heart sank. At that moment, a ray of soul rushed to the sky and immediately released his Buddha power. As soon as the powerful Buddha power was released, the thunder god and the lightning mother trembled, and the artifact in their hands almost fell to the ground. Amitabha, the 2 benefactors are so vicious and evil, why are they like this? Quickly call the gods to see this divine monk. 10,000 Buddhas sent a message to the thunder god and the lightning mother. End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The Brave Life of a Space Peasant Girl. Author, Lan Department. Chapter 709. Chapter 709, Ascension 3. Divine Monk, Thunder Goddess and Lightning Mother trembled and shouted. They were not clumsy. This was a divine monk from the God realm, a powerful divine monk. Where is the way of heaven? 10,000 Buddhas asked. We don't know, we know, We were ordered to come here, but he disappeared, Lei Gong said tremblingly. Snort. 10,000 Buddhas hummed loudly, and this hum made the immortal world tremble a few times. Get out of there, Yet Wan Fo shouted again. Of course, the people in the immortal world and Yuan could not hear it. The immortal world shook a few times, and everyone felt it, but did not care. Such tremors often occur in the immortal world. God, what advice does the holy monk have? A trembling voice sounded in the ears of 10,000 Buddhas. Tell me, what's going on? There was no room for rejection in Wanfo's voice. This divine monk, this is not to blame, Xiodao, it means the world of gods. It is said that because of this fairy, there are more than 10 gods and men in the world of gods at once. This is beyond common sense, so, just. Humph. That's nonsense, so why are you trying to kill him? 10,000 Buddhas were so angry that their livers ached. What kind of nonsense is this? The world of gods is so big, why are we afraid of having more than a dozen gods? Yes. The way of heaven is submissive. The aura of this holy monk is so powerful. If he dares to talk nonsense, he guarantees that he will not see tomorrow. If you dare to mess around down there, the poor monk will crush you. Wan Fo glanced down and saw that Yuan had recovered, so he couldn't wait too long to avoid making her suspicious. Yes, yes, Xiodao understands. Tiandao breathed a sigh of relief and quickly sent a message to the Duke of Thunder and the Mother of Lightning. After receiving the order, the Thunder God and Lightning Girl struck as usual. They were here to perform the task, and they came as they were told. After the thunder tribulation returned to normal, Yuan looked at the sky strangely, then at the 10,000 Buddhas who were sitting motionless, raised the corners of her mouth, and continued to survive the tribulation. Yuan was able to deal with the normal thunder disasters one after another. 10 days later, the thunder tribulation was over. When the last thunder tribulation was over, there was a boom in Yuan's brain. It was like an open floodgate, and memory fragments flew out like snowflakes. After a while, and began to arrange them in order. Yuan had no time to look, and the scene in front of her suddenly changed. This is the void, and Yuan can see the twinkling stars around her. Are you going to overcome the inner demon tribulation? Yuan thought to herself. Suddenly, a powerful attack hit her. She immediately jumped up and barely managed to dodge the attack. Ha ha ha, Wire's star steps are so fast. She has reached the pinnacle. She is really a genius. It's such a pity. As soon as he finished speaking, a figure flashed in front of Yuan. Yuan looked at this man warily. He was in his 40s, handsome, and his aura was surprisingly powerful. He looked at Yuan with a half-smile, and his tone was affectionate, but his expression and eyes were like that of a hunter. Yuan shuddered unconsciously when she saw this person. She summoned the star sword and raised it to defend. Wire, you don't have to be so guarded about Grandpa. Grandpa is here to take you home. When the man saw her summoning the star sword, his expression changed, his tone was particularly gentle, and his face was kind. Yuan stared at the man who called himself Grandpa and had no impression of him at all. When did she have a grandpa? No one knew about it, so where did she get her grandpa? This thought suddenly came to Yuan's mind. How can any grandpa hit his granddaughter hard as soon as he made a move? The blow just now was so strong, she was not a fool, she really had the intention to kill her. Moreover, she hated this man so much that she had an urge in her heart to kill him. As if he were her mortal enemy. Seeing that she was unmoved, the man looked at him with unfamiliar and wary eyes. Suddenly there was a feeling in his mind. He asked tentatively, Wire doesn't remember Grandpa. Yuan only asked, why do you want to kill me? Haha, I really lost my memory. The man seemed very happy. He waved his hand and a barrier covered the two of them, and then a big hand suddenly grabbed Yuan again. Yuan had no choice but to raise the star sword and strike at the man. Haha, waiter, you still want to fight back with your strength. The man shook his head, changed his grip to chopping, and struck the star sword that was attacking him with one palm. Click. The star sword was broken into two pieces, fell from Yuan's hand, and fell into the void. Poof. The star sword was destroyed, and Yuan suffered a backlash, opening her mouth and spitting out a large mouthful of blood. When the man saw it, a trace of cruelty flashed in his eyes, and a big hand fell from the sky to grab her. The terrifying force suppressed Yuan and she could not move. She watched in horror as the big hand pressed towards her. Yuan couldn't move, and her thoughts were over. Boom. The big palm slapped her on the top of the head. Crack, Yuan could hear the sound of his skull breaking, and his facial features immediately began to bleed. Yuan stood up unsteadily, her eyes began to blur, she shook her head, and suddenly, another punch hit her chest. Yuan was hit far away, but the man caught her to prevent her from flying out. She staggered and spat out a large mouthful of blood. Just after vomiting, she was hit with several more punches. After a while, there was not a good piece of her body. Ha ha ha, it feels so good, it's so refreshing, Ming Xiao, my good brother, have you seen it, the man said, throwing out a weak soul, pointing at Yuan like a madman and laughing. When Chen Hun saw Yuan's appearance, his heart ached. Ming Ao, you beast, he is your grandson after all, how could you be so cruel? You killed us back then, and you treated Mingruo like this, and you treated Mingruo like this. Zai Wei, don't you have a painful conscience? Conscience? Can conscience be eaten? I am obviously the astral body, so why does my father prefer you? Why did I give Tiandao sect to you and let you be the main god? Why do you take all the benefits by yourself? The man is Ming Ao. Ming Ao looks unwilling, but Ming Ming's handsome face becomes so twisted. Ming Xiao shook his head and said sadly, you killed me and kidnapped your sister-in-law just for this? Don't you think about how your father can safely leave Tiandao sect and Tianxia realm in your hands with your paranoid temperament, inside? Or if you want it, just tell me, why didn't I give it to you, and what did you do? Kill me, kidnap your sister-in-law to erase her memory, abuse my daughter, and now you want to kill my granddaughter. Can you prove it like this? What? Want it? Ha ha ha, my good brother, am I a beggar? Why do I ask you for it? Why can't I get it myself? You are a madman. Ming Ao said loudly, what's the difference between that and a lunatic? He pointed at Yuan and said, yes, I am a lunatic. Otherwise, how could I kill you, kidnap your wife, and kill your granddaughter? This makes me happy, and it takes away the pain in my heart. How about taking it out on you all? Isn't it a pleasure? Since she is about to die, wouldn't her astral body be wasted and she could give it to me as a son? End of this chapter. The Brave Life of a Space Peasant Girl. Author, Lan Department. Chapter 710. Chapter 710, Ascension 4. Tianya is indeed your son. Haha, why can't I have a son? Look at how good he is now. He has already taken the position of Lord God, and I am also the leader of Tiandao section. We, father and son, got what we deserve. Ha ha ha, so happy. Ming Xiao sighed heavily. Yuan stared at the scene blankly, forgetting to escape. She looked at the weak soul and felt extremely uncomfortable. She didn't know if what they said was true. If it was true, how could she accept such a fact? The cousin's grandfather killed her maternal grandfather, kidnapped her biological grandmother, killed her mother, and killed her? How could there be such a vicious person in the world? No matter how cruel the world of cultivation is, there are no such cruel people. Just because of their father's preference. Yuan couldn't stand it. Child, let's go quickly, remember to never go back to Dongsha realm if you go too far. Just when Yuan was in a daze, a weak voice came into her ears. Yuan looked at Shenhun, who said urgently, "Go quickly, if you don't go, it will be too late." "He won't kill me." "My child, go quickly." Shenhun said eagerly. Yuan hesitated. She didn't want to go alone, she wanted to take her soul with her. "Humph. You want to leave? Can you walk in my barrier?" Ming Ao dismissed it. As soon as he saw Ming Xiao's appearance, he knew that Ming Xiao was telling the dead girl to leave without even listening. As he said that, he grabbed Yuan with his big palm. Just when Qianjun fired, Yuan glanced at the soul, and with a movement of consciousness, he activated the realm gate and suddenly teleported away. After teleporting away, the scene suddenly changed again. Tianxia realm, Ziwei continent. Yuan Wu was running freely through the mountains and forests. In front of her was a dark green snake. Tang snake flew very fast, and Yuan chased him very fast. The star steps under his feet were faster than lightning. Seeing that she was about to catch him, Yuan raised her lips. She had been chasing the snake for a long time, and she must contract it today. She dared to despise her for her low strength. How could she be so weak? How many people in the divine world are like her who are tens of thousands of years old and have a divine sect? Snort. The guy who doesn't see anything. Boom. Suddenly, a huge ball of light fell from the sky. The ball of light had not yet fallen, but the powerful force had already shaken the forest to ashes. The snake that was flying in front was so frightened that it did not dare to stop and sped away. Yuan was also shocked by the sudden attack. With a flash of consciousness, she immediately threw the star flag. Before the star flag was arranged, the ball of light was thrown at her. There was no other way, so Yuan had to use the star step to dodge the attack first. Boom! The ball of light hit the place where she was standing, and a mushroom cloud suddenly exploded there. The powerful air wave spread instantly. While Yuan was evading the attack, the star flag had already been deployed, but the soaring snake was not so lucky. He and the other surviving mythical beasts were thrown out of the crepe myrtle world, and their whereabouts were unknown, let alone where they were alive. It's death. To make matters worse, the originally paradise-like world of Ziwei was flattened by this powerful air wave and turned into a desert. The people in Ziwei realm also disappeared into nothing. Yuan looked at all this, horrified. She was still in shock, and then a stronger attack hit the star formation. Yuan had never seen such a scene before. She was so frightened that she did not dare to move in the formation, letting the free attackers hit the star formation. I don't know how long it took, but two people suddenly flew over. Yuan was surprised and said, "Mom and Dad." As soon as Yaji and Tianyan came and saw Tianya attacking their daughter, they immediately started fighting with Tianya. 2 against 1, Tianya can fight with ease. This battle was fought until the sky was darkened and the earth was darkened. Suddenly, Yaoji was knocked down. "Mother," Yuan exclaimed. "Wire, quickly withdraw the formation. Mom will send you away." Yaoji wiped the blood from her mouth and said anxiously. "Okay," Yuan agreed. She knew that she would be a burden here. Her parents would be able to escape if she left, so Yuan immediately withdrew the star formation. Without saying a word, Yaoji summoned a magical weapon, and quickly completed the decision with her hands. It didn't take long for a vortex to form in front of Yuan. "Wire, jump in quickly." Yaoji forced herself to support herself and shouted. Yuan nodded and looked back reluctantly at Tianyan, who was fighting Tianya in the sky, and Yaoji, who was at the end of her power. She said, "Mom and Dad, take care." Then he plunged into the whirlpool. Not long after she plunged into the vortex, the space suddenly vibrated, and a strong wind blew towards her. Soon she fainted because she could not bear the strong wind. When Yuan opened her eyes again, she saw that she was still sitting on the ground, and the ascension channel above her head had been opened. Yuan suddenly came back to her senses, and with a flash of consciousness, She collected the star flag, 10,000 Buddhas, and the little snake and flew towards the colorful passage. In the god realm, Yuan stood on a high mountain. She looked down at the lake below the mountain. The place was rich in divine power and was very suitable as a training ground. Unfortunately, there was a powerful divine beast here. I just didn't know if the little snake could defeat her. The space is being upgraded at this time. She can't enter, and little snake and the others can't get out. She flew up and landed here without even daring to move. There was nothing she could do. She sat down and consolidated her cultivation first. As long as she doesn't move here, the mythical beasts in the lake will not attack her. Also sort out your memory. The two scenes she saw in the fairy world before were her memories in the divine world and the memory about the destruction of the star sword, which she had to sort out. Especially about her grandparents, she still had to talk to her parents about this matter. They definitely don't know about this. A month later, Yuan opened her eyes, and she felt happy that the space upgrade was completed. She never expected that after being promoted to a god, the space could be upgraded. She had been thinking about how to exchange the immortal energy in the space into divine power when she reached the divine world. This saves trouble. Yuan's consciousness moved and she entered the space. In the space, rich divine power rushed toward his face. Yuan took a few puffs and looked at Mujukan. He has used an isolation array to isolate the divine power. After seeing that he was okay, Yuan entered the practice room, sat down and continued to consolidate his cultivation. A year later, Yuan's cultivation was consolidated in the early stage of being a god. She did not even practice the magical skills unlocked in star art, and immediately attracted Xiaoji. Xiaoji flew over happily, and she told Yuan that she had returned to her peak. Master, now I can search a long distance at once. Did you ask me to come to the world of cultivating immortals? Yes, be quick. She had seen Mujukan before. The immortal power in his body was leaking out. If he didn't find it, he would probably have to rebuild it. Good. Xiaoji immediately launched a search. Yuan was watching from the boundary gate. After the Xiaoji is fully restored, she can follow the Xiaoji to browse at the boundary gate. Furthermore, the screen on the opposite side can be zoomed out, and several planets can be seen at the same time, instead of the one side that could only be seen before. End of this chapter.